Hello, welcome to Food for Life, where the food isn't just for the belly. My name is Jennifer Shepler, and today's topic is friendships. But first, we're going to do a little bit of housekeeping. Number one, obviously, I'm not a professional, I'm not a psychologist, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a counselor. So everything that I talk about in my perspective is my opinions. I am an expert in my own life and its journeys and things that I've learned. So that with that being said, I may make a few mistakes. I may misinterpret it words. I'm real good with that. I won't usually quote because I'm terrible at it. So basically what I'm saying is I'm human and I'm going to make mistakes and maybe say things. So I'm not going to take offense to anybody's offense. So we're all going to lift each other up here and just laugh away at any issues, okay? And please like and subscribe. I'm hoping to have some topics on here that you guys can relate to and see a new perspective, a new thought that's, thought-provoking. That's kind of like, we're just going to have a chit-chat. Grab a coffee, enjoy, chime in. So yeah, with that, we're going to get into friendships. I guess a good start of the day is, have you ever had something happen to you by a friend that instantly stopped the friendship? That's pretty intense when that happens. Obviously, they've crossed a line that I guess you didn't anticipate. That's the best way I can describe it. So I'm going to tell you a story, and this is the worldly view of what a friendship is, okay? So I'm still in Portland, okay, and I'm in my 20s because my daughter was around 6, so I'm in my 20s, and I had this friend that we would go to her house and have dinners. I've known her for about, I'd say, 1 or 2 years. I used to drive her car around. I don't even remember BMW or what. It was a nice car. So she let me drive it around and do errands for her. She didn't feel like it. I was even part of a bowling team with her. We were on the same team. So we had established a good friendship. So one day she had asked me if I wanted to go to Seattle with her for a bit. It's a few hours, I think. If I remember, it's about 3 hour drive. So now I'm going to have to look it up. Somebody else can comment, hey, Jen, it's actually this long if you want. Anyway, for those who like to, because I have the itch to Google it right now. But anyway, so I said, yeah, let's do that. So we planned on going to Seattle for the day. And I specifically remember telling her, look, I'm a single mom. I'm barely making ends meet. I have no money to go out to a fancy restaurant. So I'm going to bring my lunch. And she says, no problem. So we get to Seattle, and first thing on her mind is she's hungry. So she pulls up in front, I guess, a deli, or I can't even remember, some restaurant. She says, you're going to love this place. I said, I know, that's great. But remember, I brought my lunch. She's like, don't worry about it. Come on in with me. I'm assuming she's going to buy lunch. So we get in. It's a real great place. I think it was a burrito place. I remember it being a Mexican place, so it was probably authentic. I don't even know the street. Like, I hardly ever went to Seattle. Like, the only time I went to Seattle was when I was like 9 years old and we went to the fair. So I have even no clue where I'm even at. And I didn't drive, so I wasn't paying attention to where we were really going. We were just going for the day, a spur of the day, okay? Just spontaneous trip. And so we get into the restaurant. She orders her meal, and then she turns and looks to me. And I said, she's like, what are you going to order? So right now, obviously, she's buying me lunch. So I tell her the order, and then she pays for hers. And then he comes to me and asks me to pay my bill. And I'm like, oh, I obviously assumed. So I look at my friend like, I thought you were buying. It was clear to me that you were, and I was clear to you. This is what's going on in my head. And the look on her face is like, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm like, you're going to have to cancel the order. While she's waiting for her order, I'm canceling mine. And I looked at her and I said, how could you do that? You just embarrassed me in front of all these people. Like, how could you invite me into a restaurant after what I just told you? And then she gets her order and then looks at me weird and walks out the door. So I'm like, okay, I need to calm down. I just sit back in disbelief. I'm completely embarrassed at what just happened. I don't even know if people were looking at me. I don't even remember. It was kind of like a dream at this point. But I do remember when I walked outside to go get my lunch out of her car, she was gone. She took the car and left. And I'm like, okay, she's probably just going around the block, and let it sink in what happened. She'll realize clearly I don't like to be embarrassed and put on the spot like that. Maybe I flipped out on her and embarrassed her. I'm thinking these things and, looking, wonder when she's coming back. And I just thought, some people take longer. By now it's been half an hour and I'm just standing in the outside this deli, dumbfounded that I just got left in Seattle. Like, this would be a really good movie idea for somebody out there. I can give you my number if you need to have that, idea. So I am assuming that I called my best friend because she's the only one in my life that would either listen to this story, believe me, and bail me out. Like, she's bailed me out in the craziest things. So I'm sure, I don't even remember. I'm only assuming because the time in my life, I know where I was at, what I was doing. I was a painter. So I know I didn't have a lot of people in my life. So she had to have been the one to come out and get me. And so, needless to say, her and I never contacted each other again. That was what did it. I was honest and open, even though I felt like a heel because I had no cash on me to spend the day in Seattle. Like, I don't, when I look back on that, I'm like, duh, Jen, we're going to spend the day. Was I to expect her to pay for the whole thing? Like, but, that was all in hindsight when I thought about all that. And it's like, oh, yeah, well, clearly she wouldn't. But, again, it's an assumption. Like, we never really talked about what we were going to do or nothing. So, yeah, I ended up, I don't even know if I had lunch. I don't even know what happened after that. All I know is she crossed the line when she embarrassed me publicly, and I was put on the spot with no cash. And so that had created a domino effect because after that, people have to be matter of fact with me if we're going to go out. So if you have, some of you may have friends that say, hey, let's go to the movies. And then you bring your money, they bring theirs, and everybody pays for theirs unless somebody says, oh, no, don't worry about it. And then you have other friends who say, no, if I invite you, then that's automatic pay. But then you got other friends who think, no, that's not true. So it's like, oh, okay, we have a communication that we need to kind of grasp. And that's what I got out of not communicating enough. So now my friends have to say, hey, Jennifer, we're going to go for coffee and I'm going to treat you. Then I know, cool. Or guess what? I get to treat you this time. So that's always the ultimate goal. But friends that embarrass you, that's a problem. So it took me a while to really figure out that whole scenario and look back and realize what are friendships and what aren't friendships. And what that lady showed me that day was not friendship. And that is what a worldly friendship might think. People think, people have friends for so many different reasons. And, you know, um, the intention is to have them for good reasons. So if only we could turn back time, I would go back and tell her my what I did wrong and all that. But we can't do that, right? So we have to learn to forgive the situation and move on, or it will just. So let's take a look at what God says about friendships. And I found two scriptures. One of them is Ecclesiastes. Usually I can't say that word, but I've been practicing that one. Chapter 4, verse 9. Two are better than one because they have good reward for their toil. For if they fall, one will lift the other. But woe to the one who is alone and falls and does not have another to help. So I had to think about that one. Two are better than one, of course. That's where we get these great ideas, right? We all know when we work in a group, more ideas manifest. It's just given because we all have these great ideas and thoughts, and when you put them together, it's like. But then if we fall, like if one of us does something wrong, or if they falter in any way, like in my case in the restaurant, maybe I shouldn't have said to her out loud, why would you embarrass me like that? Because I probably just did what she did to me. I just embarrassed her. So what I should have done was say, oh, there must have been a misunderstanding. Actually, I think I'm going to cancel my order, and then tell my friend, I'll meet you out in the car. And that's what I should have done. So that is where she could have come up and said, Jennifer, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to embarrass you like that. I'm still not sure why she did when I talked to her ahead of time, but that's not what really matters, right? And then the one who falls does not have another to help. And, I thought, I hope that in her life, because at the time when I knew her then, I didn't see it. But as I got older and look back on the friendships I've had in my old life, I had to think about all the things that were similar. And what was similar is I couldn't rely on her. She didn't have a lot of friends herself. She was isolated. And so that told me, well, so she has a life too. And I don't know why she did what she did, but I have to trust that she learned from it and I learned from it so that we can both move on and I can wish her well and know what my future friends are going to look like, right? So that's that. And the other scripture was Proverbs 18:24. Some friends play at friendships, but a true friend sticks closer than the ones nearest kin. And that's what she did for me. She played on a friendship, but a true friendship would have paid attention to what I was telling her. I had no money. She could have given me with her communication, I can't pay for you, but I do want you to check out this. Bring in your lunch or whatever. There's so many different ways this could have turned out. And so that's when I knew then instantly that she was not my friend. But it took me a while to figure out what is a friendship to me and what isn't. And it's taken a lot of weeding people out. And, I'm going to tell you right now that that is not a bad thing. Some people expect you to be friends for life, but sometimes they're not the ones for you for your life. We all know that, right? We all go through seasons of friendships. So I had to learn, well, what are my friends? And that's a question I'd like you to ask yourself. Who are your friends? Are your friends the type will drop everything? Then great. That is an emergency friend. And then there are some friends that can't drop everything for you. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't be their friend. It just means that there's certain things that they can't do. So you have to appreciate their life too. And that's, I've had people say to me, you should never have a friend you can never count on. But you can count on most of your friends, or they wouldn't be our friends. But some you can count on certain things on, and others you can't. I have friends that I can only talk to on the phone. It's just a phone connection. It's weird because everybody else, I don't want to chat on the phone. And then you've got one that you like to write letters, or some that you want to talk through Messenger. There's different ways. Some people you can talk about deep things with, and some you can't. And that's another thing. If your friend isn't giving you that you can do it, that motivational and being there for you. If you're walking away after being with somebody feeling sad or depressed or confused or irritated, those are not, that's not a good thing. That's not a godly vibe. That's a devil vibe, if you want to call it that way, for lack of a better word. So you want to stick to those who give you value, not that, you can both give each other value. And there's some people that are only here temporarily. And there's some here that will tell you things and you're like, that's not true. And it leads you down to a whole new path. And that was the very sole reason that you ran into that person, was for them to tell you that so that you can dig deeper. That's what the universe does. That's how God works his people. So friendships come in so many forms. And also, I think one of the things to think about too is, what do you expect out of a friendship? And those are things that are valid to talk about if you're becoming friends. Sometimes, some people are very matter of fact. I'm not so matter of fact. It isn't this way or this way. There's some leeway on both sides. So I know that if a person is stubborn and they're one track mind, I know that maybe they're not the person that I would want to talk about with when it comes to decision making. I want to be with somebody who has more of an open mind and asks me questions to think about before I make that decision. That is the type of a friend that's good too. So it's a touchy, wishy-washy thing. So with that, I think it's important to be careful who you befriend. You can't always trust everybody. And I've known people that would say something like, well, you don't trust me? And it's like, no, I don't know you. And they're offended by that. But they forget that trust is something that you build, and it takes seconds to break it. So if you don't have that trust, is it a friendship or is it just an acquaintance? Do they help you with your journey? I've had some friends that have given me bad advice, but I've got friends who give me good advice. So you know who to go to, you know who not to go to. So it's important to know that, you're not expected to have a million best friends. It's actually okay if you only have two or three. And but we have to treat each other with a little bit more kindness so that we can grow that friendship group. In order to get out there and spread your wings, you got to try new things. So I think um, having friends in all forms are important and healthy, just as it's important and healthy for you to move on if friends are not good for you. That's what God wants. He wants us to have enriched lives. If you've got friends that are not enriching your lives, they're not friends, okay? So, with that being said, we're going to have a motivational moment. And this is what God says for you today. Ephesians 4:32 says, "Be kind and compassionate to one another, forgiving each other just as Christ God forgave you." So that kind of fits. That was just a random draw. I should have shown you what I was doing, but I take out of this little bucket of different motivational things that God says to us that will help us on our journey on this world full of uncertainty, and to remember, if you are kind and compassionate, it will rub off onto other people. There's a lot of angry people out there, and we can show the light of hope. That's what we need to show people. And you got to forgive. That's another topic we'll be going on to soon. So I thank you again for joining me on our topic of friendships. And know who you are. It's be yourself. If somebody doesn't like you for who you are, they're not worth your time. And God has every reason for you to be on this earth, full of friends. You just got to find the right friends. So be blessed, be well, pick the right friends, and you won't be left hanging out on the curb. And peace be with you. See you next time. Like and share, subscribe, and tag a friend. Take care.